As mysterious drones are spotted hovering over New Jersey, the White House is simultaneously telling Americans they don't know where the drones are from and that there's nothing to worry about, which is why Americans are so worried. Are the drones the prelude to an enemy attack? Are they, as some have suggested, being operated by the government in a bid to detect a radiation leak? Or are they a diversion? The Democratic administration has Americans looking up into the sky rather than looking into who Joe Biden is pardoning. It beggars belief that American officials don't know who or what is operating in airspace over sensitive defence sites. Donald Trump told the media today that officials know exactly what's happening, despite their denials.
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should.
Joining me now is former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Sean, Trump also refused to say whether or not he had been briefed on the situation, adding further intrigue.
Yeah, well, look, I think that there's an element to which he can't talk about certain things. But the reality is, James, that this is either utter incompetence or they're lying. I mean, you stated it perfectly at the outset. You either know you can't tell people they're safe if they don't know what's going on. And when you see this many drones flying overhead over key military installations over the president's golf club there at Bedminster, New Jersey, you would think that the government would want to know. So this begs the question, truly, are they that incompetent or are they lying? And this all comes on the heels of not knowing whether or not China was sending a spy balloon over a country for days on end. I don't know that these are the most trusted people when it comes to our safety of what's in the sky.
Yeah, well, I think you're definitely right about that. And of course, while Americans are distracted by UFOs, something truly sinister is happening on the southern border. The Biden administration, and I cannot believe this, is selling off parts of the border wall. Trump ripped into Biden for what he described as, quote, an almost criminal act. Have a listen.
We ordered an additional 200 miles of wall. It's very expensive, and now it's about double the price of what it would have been 6 years ago. And the administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost double what it cost years ago.
Beyond a criminal act, it seems treasonous to me, Sean. And in addition, didn't the Biden administration promise a smooth transition? This seems to be an effort to disrupt Trump's agenda, one that people voted overwhelmingly for. They want the southern border secured.
Yeah, this is a real slap in the face of the American people. Look, James, I was down at the southern border probably 4 weeks ago, and there were piles and piles of this wall material that they had been told was not to be touched starting at noon on January 20th, 2021, when Biden was sworn into office. It has sat there. And now they're basically going to sell it for, as the president noted, pennies on the dollar, so that it has to be repurchased. And here's the most insulting part of it. You know, President Trump mentioned how much more expensive it's going to be. But it's because of the inflation that Biden caused that we're going to have to buy it again at a much steeper price. So they're selling it for pennies on the dollar. We're going to repay for it as taxpayers at a much higher cost because of the very policies that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden lost the election over. I mean, this is really adding insult to injury for so many Americans. Never mind the policy itself that they have allowed to, perpetrate our nation and allow the southern border to remain wide open. But now, on the way out the door, to be selling it off the way that they are is just unfathomable.
Yeah, I mean, you could not make this stuff up. This sort of behaviour should disqualify the Democrats ever getting back into office for a generation, I reckon.
But,
Hey,
James,
a lot of people have commented. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. But do you understand that an Australian television network, has asked more questions about this than the American media? There is zero curiosity about this in the American media. Where's the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC asking Democratic lawmakers to be accountable for these decisions, to speak out against it? There's zero. Australian television has covered this issue more than American television.
Well, it just seems so obvious, Sean. I mean, it's an obvious story for one, but it's also clearly outrageous. Why the lack of curiosity by the media in the US? Are they just a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party and that's the way it is? Or do they not think it's a problem that people are pouring over the border?
I think it's more of the latter. They actually, I think, agree with this. They sort of don't want a southern border. They believe in an open borders policy. Despite the vast majority of the American people supporting President Trump on this issue. So I don't think they're covering it because they don't want to. They clearly, look, they'll cover everything the president says when it comes to deporting people in this country illegally. But when it comes to President Biden and his policy of not obeying the law and now selling off something that the American taxpayer has already paid for, not a peep.
It's just extraordinary. Hey, a lot of people have commented just on another topic that really I find just shocking. People have commented on the way in which the left have fawned over Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of a health insurance CEO. I want to play you Trump's take on this and ask you about the culture in the United States at the moment. Here's Trump.
I think it's a terrible thing. I think it's really terrible that some people seem to admire him, like him. And I was happy to see that it wasn't specific to this gentleman that was killed. It's just an overall sickness as opposed to a specific sickness. That was a terrible thing. It was cold-blooded, just a cold-blooded, horrible killing. And how people can like this guy is, that's a sickness, actually.
Sean, I listened to that and I thought Trump's onto something here. The cheering for a murderer is not just an aberration. It's a symptom of a deeper, he called it a sickness that seems to be spreading and sadly to say, not just in the United States, but in the Western world.
Yeah, and you referred to this at the beginning, James, but there are Democratic senators in the United States who are trying to explain this away. Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts saying, well, when you push somebody that far, you got to expect these kind of things. No, you don't ever have to accept these things. You never, ever explain away cold-blooded killing, as President Trump noted. This is not, we should never normalize this. The idea that this man shot a husband, a father, a fellow human being in cold blood on the streets of Midtown Manhattan is not something we should be explaining away or admiring or attempting to idolize. It's disgusting what the left is doing, and it explains a lot about who they are at their core.
Yeah, sadly, it really does. Hey, before I let you go, I want to know what you thought of Joe Biden's comments overnight that Kamala Harris will remain a major player in US politics despite her humiliating defeat. Here's what Biden had to say.
I knew what I was doing, asked her to be my vice president. I knew her. I knew of her. I knew about her. I knew her record. I trusted her. She always served this country with purpose and integrity, and she always will. And you're not going anywhere, kid, because we're not going to let you go. Not going anywhere.
Seriously, is the Democratic cupboard really that bare, Sean, that Kamala Harris could she possibly run again in 2028? Surely not.
Well, as a Republican, I'm cheering her on. I'd love to see her make another comeback at it between 2019 and this time around. Listen, I'd love her back on the stage. But honestly, that says a lot about the state of the Democratic Party if she's going to be their standard bearer. Look, she failed fundamentally with key constituencies within the Democratic Party. She spent billions of dollars and is in debt. It was unbelievable. She bought friends. She paid Beyonce and these other folks to come out and support her. This literally is laughable. And the idea that you are not, as a Democrat, embarrassed about the campaign that she ran, the money that she wasted, says a lot about the Democratic Party today. If I were them, I would ask her to go to California and never come back.
You know, I reckon that just as you're excited that she could be the next candidate, I reckon J.D. Vance would love her to be the Democratic candidate as well, would guarantee he'll succeed Trump. Hey, thanks for your time tonight, Sean. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Always a pleasure, James. Merry Christmas if I don't see you again.